Hello YouTube, Shrey Marco here, and today we have another Road to RWBY Volume 4. This one is episode 7. I keep losing track as soon as I think about... anyway. So, yeah, today we are covering the last two, or perceivably the last two. Again, these are kind of hot audibles from finding out what we're getting. And tomorrow might be a hot audible, and... yeah, so depending on what they release for us on what will be Friday when you guys are seeing this. Kind of Friday because I'm recording this at midnight. But when you guys see this, it'll be Friday, and we'll see what they give us. So I might have a video planned, but if they give us something fresh and new, I'm going to throw you that, guys, and give you guys my thoughts on that. But as I was saying, today we are talking about the World of Remnants for Atlas and Vacuo. So first we're going to start with Atlas, and one of the kind of key things about Atlas is that they are survivors in like the best sense of the word, the most accurate sense of the word. They traveled to the northernmost piece of land. It was a cold tundra-like area, but that cold tundra area and especially with the mountainous areas in there, made it easier to defend the Grimm. Like a lot of these kingdoms are based off of what the natural defenses are of the to defend the kingdom from Grimm attacks. This one also had the bonus of having a very defensible climate against the Grimm, and this screenshot, although it might be hyperbole in some sense, shows that Grimm do freeze, which also give us kind of insight to the effects that the Grimm can have on certain tundras or climates, and kind of the biology of the Grimm and how they operate internally, as well as we have a kind of a hint on how they're made, but that's all speculation, to be honest. Now, the biggest part about Atlas is that they are the most technologically advanced and have been the most technologically advanced kingdom of all time. They saw a challenge, and they were challenged because of the climate and the weather and the overall area that they are trying to settle in. And then they had to adapt, and how they adapted was utilizing dust. Now, of course, since the Schnee Dust Company is from Atlas, it's been... dust is kind of like, at least up until recently, has been kind of pictured to be something of Atlas. Like usually when you think about dust, you think of Atlas because of their research and all them being the most scientific of all the kingdoms, so that kind of lands in with them and their use of dust and their evolution of the use of dust. So they found dust and they were able to utilize it defensively, and as we found out as well, after the Great War, especially when they built their academy, they used dust to enhance the academy, make the academy more efficient, make the academy bigger or more self-preservant and more defensive and protected, and they use that as a way to give back and give the teachings of the world and protect the people who were chasing the knowledge of the warrior. And that is where they went, and it actually turned out that the Skull Atlas was under Mantle. And Mantle was the old name of the kingdom when the kingdom was called Mantle, and Mantle was the first capital city. But as the school grew and the defenses and the use of dust in the school grew, then that's when the military came in and the residential districts came in surrounding the school. And that's when the choice was made to move the capital from Mantle to Atlas. And also Atlas was originally called, if I could say it right, Alceus. But the interesting way they end this was that when they changed the capital from Mantle to Atlas, they called it as Golden Age's Prosperity. But those left behind in Mantle, it was the coldest of winters. It tells me that Mantle, the city in Atlas, in the Atlas Kingdom, could be a huge hotspot for bad guy activity, for not even White Fang, just team crime, or I don't even know what to call them. It's so hard. Just basic, and I hate using the term bad guy all the time. but for Raven slash Salem slash Cinder activity, because if that last line of the World of Remnant is to be true or is to be ominous, that means that they are kind of, or there are a certain group of Mantle citizens who are bitter and angry that they took away all the protections that Mantle had and left them dry. Because the way I picture it, it wasn't just we're going to kind of spread our defenses and spread our army to both Atlas and Mantle. What I pictured as was just a pick up and drop. They left Mantle with almost nothing and basically made them just another defenseless village instead of spreading their army and spreading their power to protect both cities as major cities. So those people are bitter and angry because they got left behind, because they probably have lost friends and family to grim attacks, because they were not as defended, because the kingdom decided to leave them behind. And especially if especially with the idea that the Schnee Dust Company could be buying up a lot of stock, a lot of the market would have faded, making a lot of poor and homeless people stuck in Mantle instead of moving up to Atlas, and Atlas would then become like the golden child or like the prime image of the kingdom. But then there's Mantle, and I kind of think this is almost true for everyone, where if you're not inside the kingdom, the kingdom is the capital city is the kind of the golden image. But what you don't see is the possible majority, or at least in this situation, it could be the possible majority being stuck outside the capital city with the least defenses of all the kingdom. So to talk about that, to kind of elaborate on that, so imagine we were in Vale, but then there's a few other cities, like, actually let's kind of forget about Mount Glen because that was an attempt to expand, but then there's the other villages. That the capital city of Vale is the golden image. That's where everyone's happy and everyone's, they have jobs, they have things to do, it's comfortable, it's safe. But that's a smaller portion of the population that the kingdom is kind of turning cameras towards to show, hey, we're this great kingdom. But then there's this small population outside of, or not even the majority of the population outside the kingdom's capital who can't afford to move to the capital. So in a sense, they are like the lower percent, but they are the majority, and they're the ones like, no, listen, this is not the golden city, this is not the golden image. The kingdom, the main capital city of whatever kingdom we're going to talk about, are blinding the rest of the citizens from seeing that we're not letting as many people in because you guys are the wealthier ones of the bunch. So we're not letting people inside. So it's kind of like a brainwash type of thing. So that's an interesting theory you can kind of gather, at least for some of the situations in this. But to go back on the main idea, I believe that Mantle might be a key instrumental point, and something we might see Weiss get involved with is that there is a criminal spread in Mantle, and Weiss and possibly her team, if she goes to class at the Atlas Academy, have to go and deal with something in Mantle, and they uncover the sect of the bad guy clan, basically like the sect of the White Fang in Mantle, plotting with the Atlas citizens to overthrow the Atlesian government. So that's kind of an interesting thought process to think that because of that kind of ominous ending of that World of Remnant on Atlas, is that there could be something going on in Mantle that is going to build up, and something that we are going to need our girl, who is in the position to do such a thing, to have that come to light. So I'm kind of see that happening. I don't know. It would be kind of hard. We would need to wrap up some stuff with Team Ruby or Team Ranger at this point before we can get too far into what Weiss is doing. But I feel like that's a possibility of what could be going on if there is some criminal uprising in Mantle to overthrow the Atlesian government. So now we are going to go to Vacuo, and Vacuo is interesting because again, it was a image that and it wasn't highlighted. The above part, that's the Dragon Land, it's not was not highlighted. So again, there was no indication that that upper part was a part of Vacuo. So it's an unlabeled landmass right now. But basically, the entire idea of Vacuo was it was this lush, wonderful plot of land that was settled. People made the journey across the desert to this beautiful oasis, and the entire place was just the entire landmass that was also connected to Vale. The Vacuo land and Vacuo Kingdom is on the same continent of Sonos, and that's the same continent that Vale's a part of. They just have it cut at a certain point on the map between the two at that basically the end of the desert. But basically, this entire situation reminds me of the Native Americans in the U.S. history. Is that we basically in Native Americans, they were thriving. They weren't technologically advanced, but they were honorable, and they had a lot of things going on for them. They learned how to hunt and live off the land, and basically that's what the Vacuo citizens did. Until the other three kingdoms, and the reason why I say the other three kingdoms is because if you look and actually look at the image, is that when he says Vacuo was getting invaded by more advanced kingdoms, they show the three colors of Vale, Atlas, and Mistral, like fighting against the orange, which represents the Vacuo citizens. So basically, Vacuo lost, and it turned their entire continent and their entire piece of land from a lush, resource-filled oasis and paradise to a wasteland of strip mined, over lumbering, over everything, and then it just destroyed the land. And then they finally regained control of the land, and when that happened, when they set up their first the government and of the kingdom of Vacuo, no one cared much to follow the rules, and that made Shade Academy the only source of law in the land, the only place that really obeyed the laws, and the entire place is a very hardy place. And Crow says that the only unspoken rule of Vacuo is if you can survive there, you belong there. Now, think about this also, is that Sun Wukong is from Vacuo, but he moved to Mistral, I believe. So he has some experience here, which I don't think we'll see him back here. I think this is going to be a more late game oriented area in terms of, or we're going to see a lot later in the volume, because there was just a lot of talk about the overall history. There wasn't a lot of ominous, this could be a very strong place to gather allies, and it seems like this is going to be where a lot of allies may come from, and where we might go when we are readying not necessarily a final assault, but when we're looking toward to getting more of a grip on the situation, and when we're ready to kind of move forward more aggressively. I see this not coming into effect at all in Volume 4. I see Vacuo really coming into effect much later, and therefore this doesn't have a lot to talk about, other than, again, same thing with Atlas. We could talk about, how there's angry and bitter people, but it seems like they have a common camaraderie for each other, being a part of the kingdom. So there wasn't a lot to really grip onto. I mean, they did have at one point the largest concentration of dust, and that's one reason why they were so heavily attacked and pushed off their land, is for that dust deposit that the other kingdoms wanted. So I just don't see a lot happening for Vacuo. We might get more information, especially if that upper part is talked about in any. I think that's one of the reasons why this place doesn't have a lot of stuff, because if that upper Dragon Island is talked about, we might have to make a connection between the two, and that's what I'm waiting on right now. That's why I feel there's not a lot to talk about for Vacuo, because there's going to be a bigger piece of information coming about the landmass above Vacuo. So thank you guys for watching. Sorry this wasn't as informational, at least especially for Vacuo, but I did my best in dissecting the information. I didn't want to seem like I was just repeating what the World of Remnants said. I tried to throw as much theory into it as possible, but hopefully I did that. So thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, Tremor Kills out. Peace.